The ultimate sacrifice that wasn't actually mine. When my brother Marcus filmed me walking into that operating room to donate my kidney to save his 16-year-old daughter Emma, I thought he was just being sentimental. The whole family was there. My parents, my wife Sarah, even Marcus's ex-wife Linda flew in from Portland. Everyone was crying, hugging, telling me I was a hero. Marcus had his iPhone out the entire time, capturing every moment like some kind of amateur documentarian. Should have known something was up when he kept asking me to repeat certain phrases for the camera. "Tell me again why you're doing this," he'd say, angling for the perfect shot. Most people would want privacy during those moments, but Marcus positioned himself to get every angle of my pre-op conversation with Dr. Chen, the consent forms, even me putting on the hospital gown. He filmed me signing the liability waivers, zooming in on my hands as I wrote my signature, asking me to look up at the camera and explain my decision one more time. The surgery went perfectly. Emma's new kidney started working immediately, and, within days, her color returned to normal. She looked healthier than she had in months. The dialysis machine that had been her lifeline for 8 months was finally silent. Marcus posted everything online. Instagram stories of Emma sitting up in bed, Facebook videos of her taking her first walk down the hospital corridor, clips of the whole family gathered around her bed celebrating because we'd missed her actual birthday while she was in ICU. But it was the video he posted 3 weeks later that changed everything. He'd taken all his random phone footage and somehow turned it into this polished 15-minute story called Uncle's Ultimate Sacrifice: How My Brother Saved My Daughter's Life. The production value was impressive for a guy who ran a roofing company. Smooth transitions, emotional music, perfectly timed cuts that made even me tear up watching it. It went viral overnight. 2 million views in the first day. The local news picked it up, then regional stations, then CNN. Marcus was suddenly everywhere, doing interviews about family bonds and unconditional love. He'd tear up on camera talking about how grateful he was, how I'd given his daughter a second chance at life. Good Morning America flew him to New York. The Ellen Show wanted us both on, but I declined. Something about the whole circus felt wrong. The comments were overwhelming. Thousands of people calling us both heroes, sharing their own family stories, donating money to help with medical expenses. Local businesses started reaching out to Marcus for endorsement deals. A roofing supply company wanted him as their spokesperson. A motivational speaking agency offered him a contract. The mayor gave him a key to the city at a ceremony I also declined to attend. Marcus was eating it up, posting daily about gratitude and family values, building what looked suspiciously like a personal brand around my kidney. What viewers didn't see was what Marcus told me in that hospital hallway 30 minutes before. I went under anesthesia. The conversation that somehow never made it into his carefully edited masterpiece. Update. Getting tons of messages about whether I knew what my brother was really like before this. Honestly, I thought I did. We'd had our issues over the years, but this level of deception shocked even me. Should I have seen the red flags sooner? The morning of the surgery, while I was getting prepped, Marcus pulled me aside in the hallway outside pre-op. He looked terrible. Hadn't slept, kept checking his phone, couldn't make eye contact. His hands were shaking as he fidgeted with his coffee cup from the hospital cafeteria. I figured he was just worried about Emma. We all were. She'd been on dialysis for 8 months, waiting for a donor match. When my blood work came back compatible, there wasn't even a question. That's when Marcus told me about Emma's college fund. The account we'd all been contributing to since she was born, $78,000 saved over 16 years, was empty. He'd been taking money out for months, first small amounts to cover credit card debt from his struggling roofing business. The Chicago area had been brutal for construction companies, too much competition, not enough profitable contracts. Then, larger chunks when winter hit and work dried up completely. The final withdrawal came 6 weeks ago. The remaining $31,000 that he claimed was for keeping the business afloat. Except it wasn't for business. It was for a 2019 Porsche Cayenne that was now sitting in his driveway and a week in Cancun with Jessica, the 24-year-old CrossFit trainer he'd been seeing behind Linda's back. Jessica, who posted bikini photos on Instagram with captions about living your best life and grateful for amazing adventures. Jessica, who didn't even know Emma existed until they were boarding the plane to Mexico. I remember standing there, in my hospital gown, IV already in my arm, feeling like someone had punched me in the stomach. The beeping of monitors around us seemed to get louder. A nurse walked by pushing a cart, and I had this surreal moment of wondering if this was really happening. My first instinct was to walk out, call off the surgery, let him figure out his own mess. But then I thought about Emma lying in that bed down the hall, her kidneys failing, her body slowly shutting down. She didn't choose Marcus as a father. She didn't deserve to die because he was selfish. Marcus kept talking, the words tumbling out like he'd been rehearsing this confession for weeks. He explained how the business had been hemorrhaging money since last spring. How he'd maxed out 3 credit cards trying to keep it going. how he'd borrowed against the house without telling Linda, which was why she'd filed for divorce in the first place. He painted himself as this desperate father trying to provide for his family, but every word made it clearer that he'd been thinking about himself the entire time. So I told him exactly what I thought of him, made him swear he'd confess to Emma after she recovered, and that he'd find a way to replace every penny, even if it meant selling the car and taking out loans. He nodded, tears streaming down his face, promising he'd make it right. He grabbed my hand and swore on Emma's life that he'd tell her everything as soon as she was strong enough to handle it. What I didn't realize was that his camera was recording our reflection in the hallway window behind us. He had footage of his confession, of my reaction, of everything. He just chose not to include it in his viral masterpiece. The video exploded across every platform faster than I could track. Marcus had somehow pulled together all his phone footage into this surprisingly polished story. The right music, perfectly timed cuts, even testimonials from family members talking about sacrifice and love. He must have spent weeks editing it, because it looked almost professional. The opening shot was me walking toward the hospital entrance in slow motion, carrying flowers for Emma. The soundtrack was some instrumental piece that built to emotional crescendos right when I was signing consent forms or hugging Emma goodbye before surgery. What killed me was watching him lean into the fame. He started a GoFundMe for Emma's ongoing medical expenses, even though I'd already arranged to cover everything through a medical foundation grant I'd applied for months earlier. The donation page raised over $43,000 from strangers moved by our story. Marcus went on local morning shows positioned as the grateful father whose brother saved his daughter's life. He never mentioned that Emma's medical bills were already paid. He never mentioned the college fund. The Chicago Tribune did a feature story about us. WGN News interviewed Marcus in front of our childhood home, talking about how our parents raised us to look out for each other. He started getting invited to speak at churches and community centers about family values and sacrifice. A local restaurant gave us free meals for a year. Emma's high school dedicated their next football game to our family and had Marcus give a speech at halftime about never giving up hope. The worst part was seeing Emma's face during all of this. She was so proud of the attention, so happy that everyone was calling her family heroes. She'd share the video on her own social media, adding captions about how grateful she was to have such an amazing father and uncle. She started a TikTok account documenting her recovery, always mentioning how her dad had been her rock through everything. She had no idea that while the internet was celebrating her father's devotion, he was using the GoFundMe money to make car payments. 3 months after the surgery, Emma was back to normal life. Cheerleading practice twice a week, hanging out with friends at Starbucks after school, talking about college applications. She'd been accepted to Northwestern University with a partial academic scholarship, but was stressed about the remaining costs, about $28,000 per year that would need to come from the college fund. She'd even started a Pinterest board for her dorm room, planning which posters to bring and what color bedding to buy. That's when I realized Marcus hadn't told her anything. I couldn't keep watching this charade. Emma deserved to know the truth, about her future, about the money that was supposed to secure her education. So I invited her over for dinner while Sarah was visiting her sister in Milwaukee. Just the two of us, no audience for what I knew would be a devastating conversation. Emma arrived excited, carrying her Northwestern acceptance letter and a folder full of college planning materials. She spread everything out on our kitchen table, showing me course catalogs and talking about her major plans. She wanted to study journalism, maybe work for a magazine or newspaper someday. She'd already researched internship opportunities and professors she wanted to study under. When I told her about the college fund, her reaction was exactly what I'd feared. First confusion, then disbelief, then this raw anger that was frightening to witness in someone so young. She called Marcus immediately, demanding an explanation. I could hear him on the other end, making excuses about business problems and promising to fix everything. But Emma wasn't buying it. She'd grown up a lot during her medical crisis, and she could hear the lies in his voice. She asked him specific questions about dates and amounts, pressing him for details he couldn't provide. That night, she made a decision that changed everything. Emma recorded her own video. No fancy editing, no professional lighting, just her sitting in her bedroom with her phone propped up against a stack of textbooks. She explained what really happened to her college fund, how she'd discovered that her father had stolen her future while exploiting his brother's sacrifice for internet fame. She talked about waking up from surgery grateful to her uncle, only to learn that the man everyone was calling a devoted father had betrayed his daughter in the worst possible way. She posted it at midnight on a Wednesday. By Thursday morning, it had 800,000 views. By Friday, Marcus's original video was being reported and taken down from multiple platforms. The comments that had once praised him were now filled with outrage and demands that GoFundMe donors get their money back. The local news stations that had featured Marcus's heartwarming story were suddenly running investigative pieces about charity fraud and family exploitation. His phone was ringing nonstop with reporters asking for comment. The restaurant that had given us free meals posted a statement distancing themselves from Marcus. The high school removed the dedication plaque they'd installed in his honor. Update. The backlash was swift and brutal. GoFundMe froze the account within 48 hours and started refund proceedings. Marcus lost his biggest roofing contracts as word spread around town. But watching Emma find her voice and stand up for herself made me realize something important about courage and family loyalty. The fallout was immediate and devastating. The viral video that had made Marcus a local celebrity became his downfall, as Emma's truth spread even faster than his fabricated version. GoFundMe not only froze the account but launched an investigation into fraudulent fundraising. Within a week, they'd processed refunds for nearly every donor who requested one. The platform also flagged Marcus's account, preventing him from creating future campaigns. Marcus's roofing business collapsed almost overnight. Word travels fast in our mid-sized Illinois town, and by Monday morning, 3 major commercial contracts had been canceled. The hotel chain that was planning to hire him for a roof renovation project pulled out. A shopping center development deal fell through. His crew of 6 guys all found new jobs within days, leaving him scrambling to complete existing projects alone. The Porsche disappeared from his driveway one morning, repossessed after he'd missed 3 consecutive payments while the scandal unfolded. The legal ramifications started piling up too. The Better Business Bureau opened an investigation into his business practices. The Illinois Attorney General's office launched a review of the GoFundMe situation. A class action attorney reached out to the donors who'd contributed to the fraudulent campaign, exploring options for additional legal action beyond the refunds. The hardest part was watching my parents process everything. Dad had always seen Marcus as the entrepreneurial son, the one who took risks and built something from nothing. He'd been bragging to his golf buddies about Marcus's viral fame and the speaking engagements. Mom had been so proud when Marcus's video went viral, sharing it with everyone at her book club and posting it in family group chats with relatives in Ohio and California. Learning that their son had stolen from their granddaughter while exploiting their other son's sacrifice broke something fundamental in them. Emma moved in with us temporarily while Linda fought for full custody from Portland. Linda had been documenting Marcus's behavior for months as part of her divorce proceedings, and Emma's revelation about the college fund gave her all the ammunition she needed. Watching Emma navigate all of this while maintaining her grades and preparing for college was heartbreaking. She'd gained a functioning kidney, but lost the father she thought she knew. The financial reality hit hard. Northwestern would cost over $120,000 for 4 years, and Marcus had no way to replace what he'd stolen. His business assets were being liquidated to pay debts, and the GoFundMe money was gone. Emma qualified for some need-based financial aid. Once Marcus's true financial situation became clear, but it still wasn't enough. I offered to help with tuition, but Emma refused. She didn't want any more family money tied up in her education, afraid that accepting help would somehow compromise her independence. Instead, she made a decision that surprised everyone. Emma applied for a gap year and got a job at the children's hospital where she'd been treated, working with kidney patients and their families. She wanted to help other kids navigate the transplant process, using her experience to provide support that she wished she'd had. Her plan was to save money, establish Illinois residency for in-state tuition, and attend the University of Illinois instead of Northwestern. Marcus tried reaching out several times through voicemails that ranged from angry to desperate. He blamed me for turning Emma against him, claimed I was jealous of his success and had sabotaged him out of spite. When those tactics didn't work, he switched to self-pity, talking about how his life was ruined and he had nowhere to turn. He showed up at our house twice, the second time clearly drunk and demanding to see Emma. When he wouldn't leave the property and started banging on our front door at 11 p.m., I had to call the police. That's when we filed for a restraining order. 2 years later, Emma is thriving at U of I studying pre-med with a focus on nephrology. She works part-time at the Children's Hospital and has become an advocate for young transplant recipients, speaking at medical conferences about the patient experience and the importance of family support systems. Her kidney function remains perfect, and she's never expressed regret about speaking out against Marcus. If anything, she seems stronger for having survived the betrayal and found her own path forward. Marcus moved to Phoenix last year, supposedly for a fresh start and better construction opportunities. Mom mentioned that Jessica left him months ago, taking her CrossFit equipment and moving in with some personal trainer she met on Instagram. He works construction now for someone else's company, sends Emma birthday cards that she throws away, unopened, and occasionally posts on social media about forgiveness and second chances. His original viral video has been scrubbed from most major platforms, though copies still surface occasionally on smaller sites and Reddit threads about family drama. The most unexpected development has been my relationship with Emma. The shared experience of her medical crisis and Marcus's betrayal created a bond that goes beyond typical uncle-niece dynamics. She calls every Sunday to update me on her classes and her work at the hospital. She visits for holidays and has made it clear that when she graduates medical school, she wants me at the ceremony. Sarah and I have essentially become her primary family support system, and honestly, it's been one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. The speaking engagements that Marcus used to do have been redirected to Emma. She talks at high schools about overcoming adversity and the importance of standing up for yourself, even when it means confronting family members. Her story resonates with teenagers who are dealing with their own family dysfunction. She's mature beyond her years, but also optimistic in a way that makes me believe she'll be an incredible doctor someday. Sometimes people ask if I regret donating my kidney, especially after everything with Marcus. The answer is simple: saving. Emma's life was the right choice, regardless of her father's character. But I learned something important about the difference between sacrifice and exploitation, between family loyalty and enabling destructive behavior. My kidney saved Emma's life, but her courage in telling the truth saved her future. The irony isn't lost on me that Marcus's attempt to exploit my sacrifice for his own gain ultimately led to Emma becoming stronger and more independent than she might have been otherwise. His betrayal forced her to grow up quickly and take control of her own destiny. In trying to steal her future, he actually gave her the motivation to build an even better one. Update: Emma got accepted to medical school at University of Chicago with a full scholarship based on her advocacy work and academic achievements. She's dedicating her career to pediatric nephrology because of our experience. Marcus sent a congratulations text that she deleted without reading. Sometimes the family that matters most isn't the one you're born into, but the one that chooses to support you when everything falls apart. Would you have called off the surgery after learning about the stolen college fund, or was saving Emma's life worth any personal cost?